I'm Sonia, a personal brand and style coach. My journey began in the corporate world and through lived experiences has led me where I am today. I've walked in those uncomfortable shoes, faced the same challenges and questioned my path to professional success while simultaneously navigating my personal style journey and the challenges that each decade brings. I wholeheartedly believe in the fusion of personal brand and style strategy. My mission here is to provide you with practical, actionable strategies and lived experiences to help you unlock your next level of success through the power of personal brand and style. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Style and Strategy podcast. Today, I am so excited to have Clare Wood with us. Clare is a money mentor, author, speaker, and podcaster. She's also a qualified accountant, a CPA, but she's not your average bean counter. She uses her money-making mentoring powers for lots of good. Clare helps a lot of service-based businesses to scale while creating a lifestyle that they love. So very much dear to my heart. Clare Wood also runs the Profit Academy, an online school created to help business owners increase their profits exponentially. So let's dive in. Clare, welcome to the Style and Strategy podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Sonia. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Look, I'm just going to dive right in because that's who I am. Can you share with me a little bit around a key moment or milestone that really inspired you to transition from, traditional CPA role and then moving into money mentor? And as you sort of said in the way that you've been described, you're not your traditional bean counter. Take me back. What did that look like for you?
Look, I think I'd always known that I was meant to be an entrepreneur. I just always had this feeling, and I'd get so excited whenever I met a business owner. But truthfully, I just never had the courage to take the leap. And it kind of happened because I got pushed. So I got made redundant. I was working as a commercial manager. And when I was on maternity leave with my first son, I got made redundant, like 1 in 4 women do in Australia. Unbelievable. So it was kind of the shove that I needed. I was helping my husband. He had just started his business when I was 8 months pregnant. And so I started helping him a bit. And I was really more excited about strategy, about branding, helping him with those elements of the business because he's really good at, he's a recruiter. So he's really good at the recruitment side. And yeah, and he said, this is really helpful. People would pay you for this. And that's sort of how I took the leap. And that was 8.5 years ago. I've never looked back and absolutely love the work that I do.
That's incredible. So if you think about that key moment or milestone, what was actually, like, you were 8 months pregnant, what was going through your mind as you took that leap and then thought about, well, hang on, who is this Clare Wood now that she's moved into this entrepreneurial world versus who the woman she was previously? Do you feel like there was a real shift for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because I was doing similar type work. I was advising companies on how to make more money. But a big thing that I learned when you're an entrepreneur, the buck stuff stops with you. And having gone from having, a really great, I've been earning 6 figures a year since I was 25 years old, having that stability, having that confidence that money's coming in, whether you're having a great month or not, it's definitely been a really sharp learning curve. And a big area that I had to up level is in the space of visibility. And I realized, I had a terrible fear of public speaking. I didn't really want to promote myself that much. And I've really had to shift that over the years to, be able to step into the next level of growth.
That's really interesting, actually, because if I think about some of my listeners who are in employee roles, what key steps do you think you took to gain a little bit more visibility more broadly? Because I know many, I describe them as they're real female hidden powerhouses, right? They are really good at what they do. They execute immaculately, and yet they're kind of over there and people see them as, oh, well, yeah, she's really good at getting things done, but she's never at the forefront, or they might aspire to those bigger roles. And yet they're potentially overlooked because they're seen as not having those skills to be out front and not being visible enough. So what recommendations would you say, or what was your experience in trying to get visible?
So I think the biggest thing that I would say is courage. And I think that, I don't like to generalize about genders, but I'm going to do it anyway. Men tend to be a lot more, they'll put their hand up for a pay rise. They will apply for jobs that they aren't properly qualified for. And again, this is not all men, obviously, but, I remember in meetings, like the way that people would speak, I think, gosh, you pretend you know a lot more than you actually do. And I think that courage happens in all those little moments of, for example, the way that I moved into my middle management role. I asked my boss, I said, I want a pay rise. I want this title. I remember another time I was working for a mining company and I was the only female in the room, white men. And they said to me, oh, can you go and get us coffees? And I wasn't the most junior person in the room. And I said, no, I won't. And everyone looked at me and they're like, why not? And I'm like, because I'm not the most junior person here. So I'm not going to go. And everyone awkwardly looked and they didn't ask the most junior man in the room. They went and got the receptionist to go and get us coffees.
Wow.
But those little micro moments of courage say, no, I'm not your coffee girl. And I was so nervous asking my boss for a promotion. But it kind of does happen in the little moments where you take a big, brave step and say no or say yes and really try something different. And yeah, I think that that's the big thing that I would say. And for me now in a business role, it's the same thing. I have put a post out saying, hey, will you have me on my podcast? I mean, that's a bit, it's a little bit cringe. But sometimes you just got to ask uncomfortable questions. And, I find a lot of times that when you do that, that's where the magic happens.
Mm.
And yeah, I find that particularly a lot of women don't. And particularly in Australia, I find we've got a real tall poppy syndrome here that if you ask for something or think you're too good, people will knock you down. So, yeah, it really does take those little moments of bravery and courage.
Yeah, I love that. I've got a bit of goosebumps as you were saying that. So, as you've gone through this journey into, entrepreneurial world and then setting up your business and everything, how did you actually get from, Money Mentor and then said, look, you know what, I'm actually going to go create this Profit Academy and start to, build a lot of success around that, not only for yourself, but then also for the women and, individuals and businesses that have gone through that program?
Yeah, I think that I realized a couple of years ago, I was just at capacity. I was coaching all the time, which is fantastic. It's what I love. But you reach a point where you go, I can't do this on scale anymore. And so that's why I wanted to create a program where people could work with me at a lower price point than my one-on-one coaching and be able to come through, learn the things that I'm teaching inside a program. So that's why I launched the Profit Academy, was to help more people.
Yeah. Okay. And then how do you think it's really transformed over the years? Do you think it's been the same or do you think that you've really evolved it?
Yeah, so the program itself, it's funny because I keep thinking that I need to refresh it. So there's two components to the Profit Academy. There is a program called Foundations, which is about business finances, and there's a second part which is a money mindset course.
Mm.
And a couple of times I've said I'm going to revisit it, I'm going to rewrite it. And I work through it and I'm like, it's actually really bloody good, just as it is. So there hasn't actually been much evolution in content at all. I do continually revisit it. And to be honest, a lot of the time I'm like, this is really good and really relevant. And I don't have much to add to
Yeah.
it. But the way that I'm working has changed a lot. A lot of my time these days is spent speaking, doing visibility work on, front end marketing as compared to being coaching all the time.
Yeah. Okay. And so you touched on it just then, really around the mindset component. So I think that affects many of us. It could be day-to-day life, anything where suddenly there's either going back to the visibility piece as well. But so I would say that mindset obviously plays a significant role in success. So how do you think, as if you reflect back over the years, how do you think your mindset around your personal brand has evolved over the years? And what do you think maybe have been some key moments or, attributes as to how you've got through that?
Yeah. So it's funny, brand, I'm not a strong aesthetic person. I grew up in a family that had not a lot of money. Like fashion was not even a thing that came into it. And I realized I'm a numbers gal. I'm a spreadsheet gal. I'm a finance gal. Give me a spreadsheet. I'll have a lot of fun with it. But so what I've done in this space is that I've actually hired people to help me in this area. So I've hired stylists, numerous stylists over the years. So if you're watching this video, I've actually got, beautiful background behind me here, but this is not my doing. I hired an interior stylist to make my place look beautiful. And it's the same with, clothes. And I've definitely learned over the years, I've learned tips and tricks about how to actually shop myself, and how to buy pieces that work together is something that I've really learned a lot. And when I invested in having my brand done, my brand colors and everything, one of the colors, it's this beautiful cobalt blue, and it's kind of become my like signature color. So what I've done for big events, photo shoots, is that I keep buying that signature color. And people now say, like, I'll get DMs from people saying, I saw this and thought of you. And I'll be like a cobalt blue dress or something like that. And it's really cool. It just goes to show the power of one of my girlfriends, her brand, she wears this red lipstick. And whenever I see red lips, red lipstick, I always makes me think of her. And I think that this is the power of branding, is it's when something makes you think of someone, when you've got that trigger that goes, that is that person. And another one of my friends, her look is rainbow, and whenever I see a bright, colorful outfit, I'll take a photo and I'll send it to her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this made me think of you. And I guess that this is what the power of having a memorable brand is that people associate you with a particular look, a style, a color, a feature. And I think that this is the thing. We want to be memorable.
Yes.
We want people to remember us. And there's a lot to be said about investing in that space and really getting clear about who you are. And it's funny as well because, that color that I've mentioned, my brand color, I've actually got a series of brand colors. And someone once said to me, they're like, do you deliberately shop your brand colors? And I said, well, no, they're my favorite colors. So I was wearing those colors anyway, and it's just beautiful. And I think that this is a really fun thing, is that if your brand is you, then you can't really go wrong. It's when you're trying to, I think, pretend to be someone else. I think for me, the way I think about styling and brand is it's an elevated version of who you actually are. If that makes sense.
Oh, I love the way that you've really put that together. I spent a bit of time in my program talking about, your signature style and your personal brand and so forth. And I love the examples that you've given. I've got some similar ones with like Naomi Robson, for example. She's known for red balloon and wearing red. That is her signature. And when she doesn't wear it, everyone goes, what? Why aren't you wearing red? What's happened? That type of thing as well. So when I think about a lot of professional women, whether in business or in the employed space, some are really good with financial goals and being in that space and money mindset and all of that, especially where they're working in sort of financial services. But many kind of avoid it and go, yeah, it's there. My money's going to super. I'm getting money in here. I'm keeping a mini budget kind of thing, but I really don't want to look at it. And it also plays out, when they're maybe shopping for clothes and things. What would you say are some of the common pitfalls that they should be keeping an eye out for, or things to be aware of that might be going off, but they don't realize yet?
Yeah, I think, look, a big thing that I would say is this. I call my book Intentional Profit. It's about being intentional. As someone who was working in financial services and accounting, my finances were a disaster. I was just spunking all my money. I was having a ton of fun. And I look back now and think actually how wasteful I was with my money. I'm kicking myself now in hindsight, but you do what you do at the time. But I think that just being mindful and, that can be different stages of your life as well. I was single. I think for me, I wasn't thinking about saving for a house. I just wanted to have fun and look good and do the things that I wanted to do when I wanted to do them. So I think that it can also be really different stages of your life as well. But just so long as you're doing it with intention. And I think that's the big thing. If you say, right, the next couple of months, I'm just going to have some fun, great, do that. But don't get to the end of like 10 years like I did and think, oh, I can't believe I haven't saved a cent. This isn't how I envisage things. And same with clothes. I think what I used to do again when I was single is that I would just go out, I would drop $2,000 and buy a ton of clothes without actually thinking, where am I going to wear this? What's it going to go with? It was almost just like I was trying to fill this hole with dumping a lot of money and not actually having a bit of a game plan about it. And these days I own an absolute fraction of the clothes that I used to. I have barely any clothes. And when I tell people that, they're always surprised because people say, you always look really different. And I show them my wardrobe. I'm like, that is literally everything I own. And people are always surprised. But I think that, yeah, it's about, for me, having less, but making it work.
And so tell me a little bit now around some of the work that you're currently doing. You know, you talked about that you're not just focused on the coaching elements as much, you know, it's still there, but it's more about the speaking and moving out and doing all of that sort of thing. So tell me a little bit more about where your sort of brand journey and you are really heading into in the future.
Yeah, I think that for me, a big word that springs to mind is impact. And I love to be inspiring people and educating people. And I've realized how passionate I am about this arm of my work. And that's why I'm going down this route. I think that you've got to follow those intuitive nudges. And of course, in turn, that always leads back to the paid opportunities. When you are there and you're visible and you're showing up, that's how it leads to other opportunities. And I know that my husband, you know, he's a recruiter. This is what he does all day, every day. It's the people that are commenting on your posts that you think of. It's the people who are posting regularly on their social media. They're the first person that he thinks of because they're visible, they're front of mind. And I think that that's what you want to be. If you want to be memorable, is you want to be that. You want to be memorable. You want to be front of mind. And so, yeah, a lot of the work that I'm doing is in the space of visibility at the moment, and I'm loving it.
That's so exciting. I love that. And so, if you could sort of reflect back over your journey and transitions, what would you say to maybe someone who was maybe starting off or facing a bit of a sort of a midpoint where they say a transition point, let's say? What advice would you give them?
I think just like do the next step. And don't be scared to fail and to make mistakes. And I think for me, you know, some of the biggest leaps that I've had have been off the back of scary investments, things that I think, oh my goodness. I know the very first time I hired a stylist, I thought, how the hell am I even going to afford this? She asked me what my budget was. I said $100 and she just laughed. And I was like, I'm not joking. But you sort of just make it happen. You make it come together. And same, you know, investing in my personal brand, having a logo done, starting my podcast, like every big level up that's happened in my business has come off the back of courage and just taking action, even when it felt scary.
Yeah, it's so important to be able to do that. And I think the advice about taking that next step just takes that edge off a little bit. So it just doesn't feel as scary. And then obviously combined with all the mindset work as well and really holding that together. So if you think about maybe one of the times where things were relatively challenging, you know, previously as you did that transition and you thought, oh my goodness, I've gone from this secure paying role, as you mentioned before, and diving into this new world. Sometimes, you know, our mindset can kind of kick in and think it's just like, is it ever going to happen for me? Is it ever going to work? Whatever that is, that might be in a new role, whatever. So what was that like for you? And then how did you kind of pull yourself out? Was it just taking that next step or what was that experience like?
So I worked with a coach and I've worked with many coaches over the years. And for me, that is just transformational having that support there. Because when you're wobbling, and this is what I do for my clients, you know, they contact me, they're like, oh, blah, 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 this is going on. And I'm there to say, hey, this is okay, or let's do this thing. Or when you're convoluted or stuck in something, it can just feel way too much, way too overwhelming. Someone from the outside can look in and say, do this thing. And it's just so much easier and clearer. So I think for me, investing in the support has been transformational for my own journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then one final question before I get to my fire three. So if you look at your personal brand and your style over the period of saying when you were, working in commercial and then versus now, do you see the evolution now looking back, even though, as you said, you've hired individuals to really help you through that journey? We all have face different phases of life, and I think there's shifts and turns through that. Do you see that there were key pivotal moments of shift in your brand and style?
Oh, yes, definitely. Like I said, hiring a stylist, hiring my next one, which was a level up. Every time I work with someone different, it feels like I step into a new level.
Wow.
And for me, yeah, it really is. And people can see it. They can see it
Yeah.
in your confidence. They can see it in the way that you're presenting. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, to be honest, has been off the back of working with someone new. It's been off the back of going, oh my goodness, okay, I can do this. And
Yeah.
yeah, and my self-confidence as well has really skyrocketed probably the last year or two through a lot of the deep inner work that I've done. I remember a couple of years ago after my son was born, my self-esteem was at an all-time low. I had my mum tum. I realized how much I was just really disliking the way that I physically looked. And I did this work called mirror work, which is where you look in the
Mm.
mirror and say things that you love about yourself.
Yeah.
And the first time that I did it, I was crying. I couldn't think of anything I liked about the way that I looked. And eventually I stood there and I thought, do you know what? I like my eyes. And so I started there. And from there, I just kept doing it and doing it. And then I started to really love my body, even with all its imperfections
Yeah.
and lumps and bumps. And then, ironically, after years and years of not being able to lose weight, I lost weight when I finally just loved myself as I was. When I got to the point where I was like, I am actually really just happy with me, and this body's given me my babies, and I love myself. And then that's when I actually managed to finally lose the baby weight.
Yeah, wow. That it says something really about that internal external connection
Mm,
and being able to that no matter you could be doing all the exercise in the world, eating all
mhm,
the right things, but it's that holistic view of the individual that once you've ticked those boxes, suddenly,
mm,
things change. And for
yeah.
anyone who has looked at when they jump onto Claire's Instagram page, see she's got these incredible abs now. I know from a recent post that I saw as well. So, yeah, really, really good. Okay, so I am going to ask you sort of three rapid fire questions now. So, now, what is the outfit that you think most encapsulates your personal brand and is your go to?
Oh, I've got this blue jumpsuit. It's my cobalt blue, my signature color. It is so flattering on me because I've got quite a smaller waist, but I've got a bit of a couple of curves. And this jumpsuit just clings to me so much so that when I lost weight, I had the same one resized so that I could keep
Ah,
wearing it.
love
But
that.
I love it to bits. And, if you go look at my Instagram feed, I am sure you will see a shot of me in it because I live in it.
That's fantastic. And so a lot of my listeners like to read or they're listening to Audible, etc. Has there been a book or something that you've listened to that has been or made a significant impact in your journey that you would sort of hand on heart go, yeah, you know what? I reckon you should take a listen or a read of this.
Yeah, there's a book called Get Rich Lucky. I'm not going to say the word, but it rhymes with rich.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
and that was probably the first mindset book that I ever read. And that was where I started my money mindset journey. My book, Intentional Profit, goes on about mindset as well. There's another fabulous book, You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero, is another book I really love. But a lot of the books that for me I read are about money and about money mindset because obviously that's my jam. That's what I'm all
Yeah,
about.
exactly. Thank you. And then talking about mindset, is there a go-to mindset ritual that you have? Because many of us can wake up in the morning and be in a bit of a funk, or something's happened and you need to, really switch and change things up a little bit. So is there a ritual that you have that you will do daily?
Oh, I've got a couple and I alternate it truthfully. But like for me, doing a manifestation meditation. And also I do this thing like a gratitude bomb. And I find that particularly if you're feeling in a funk, because what can happen with our subconscious mind is that we get in a real funk. We're like, everything sucks. My life sucks. And it's so funny when you're in a funk that you can't see your way out of it. Like me looking in the mirror. I mean, to be honest, I don't actually probably physically look that different to what I did at the time when I couldn't see anything I liked about myself. It's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I really go into deep, deep gratitude. I'm very, very blessed to live by the water. So I walk out the back, I go look at the beach that's at the back of our house. I look at the fish and I'm like, how the hell is this my life? How can I not be in a space of abundance and gratitude? I look around my house and I'm like, yeah, okay, we live in a tiny little beach shack, but we've got really beautiful furniture because we hired a stylist. So, it feels really nice and cozy inside. And, I'm so grateful that my kids are healthy and alive, and I'm grateful that I've got an amazing husband. And there's always something that you can be grateful for. Always. I'm grateful I've got a mobile phone and I can, call people on a phone. Like we didn't have that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
There's always things that you can find and be grateful for. So I find that's really helpful in terms of shifting energy.
I love what you've called it as well, because I've normally heard like a gratitude journal or something like that, but you called it a gratitude bomb, which was
Yeah.
really cute. So, finally, what advice would you give my listeners who are really striving, for their professional aspirations while still trying to maintain some financial health? What would be your top 3 tips for them to think about?
Firstly, I think that investing is actually a great way to save money. I know it sounds really leash, like it sounds almost counterintuitive. But for me, like I said, I think I save money when I hire professionals. When I hire a stylist, they will go, don't get that, or that brand's not right. Or, hey, did you know that if you sign up for this, you get 20% off? And I genuinely believe that I save money by hiring professionals. Same with coaches, like working with coaches, mentors. Again, you're learning things in a faster way. And so that is the first thing that I would say. Definitely investing actually saves you money. Secondly, just to be really intentional and mindful of what you're doing. So again, it's okay to lean into something, but just have a look at like, what's the impact going to be? What would be my game plan? What am I anticipating off the back of this? And the third one is what we spoke about at the start, that courage. Just do this thing that scares you. If you don't want to post I do a lot of work with my clients saying, you've got to get yourself out there, like post the video, post the photo. And I get that it's really scary and overwhelming, but for me, I'm happy to dance on my social media because I'm like, it gets me more views, and more views mean more potential clients. Posting on your account, I think now, what was I so scared of? I remember I used to think, what are people going to think of me? And now I'm like, do you know who's not judging other people? Successful people. Like other successful people will just be like, do you know what? That's really brave. I am not laughing at people who are having a go at things. Like that's just the reality of it. The only people who are laughing are people who are jealous, who don't have the courage to do the same thing. And quite frankly, people who aren't, like that's ultimately why people bully other people or laugh at them, is because they're envious.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the big thing. Do the thing, post the post, put yourself out there, ask for the promotion. I've never, ever once heard of someone asking for a promotion and then getting fired.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
What's the worst that can happen? No, not
Yeah.
at this time.
Yeah.
No, ABC. Yeah.
Yeah. And getting used to the no as well. I think that's been something
Mm,
that is really closely connected. But when you do ask uncomfortable questions, you are going to get a no. And that's okay. I ask for things all the time. People say no, or not now, or that's okay. You ask the question and yeah, if it's
then
aligned, it's aligned. If it's not, it's not.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So, if any of my listeners wanted to maybe check you out, find out more about you, all of that sort of thing, where would they find you? I'll pop all the details in the show notes, but please.
The prime place I'm hanging out online is Instagram. So it's Clare, CLARE_Wood_coach. And yeah, I've got my book, my podcast called the Clare Wood Podcast. So lots of ways that you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Clare, for being on the Style and Strategy podcast today. There have been so many little nuggets of gold and takeaways for my listeners, but I think really that those last three around taking the courage, taking that first step, doing all that, and the visibility piece, especially when we're thinking about personal brand, has really, really resonated. So thanks so much for your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being part of this inspiring episode. If you found value in today's discussion, please don't keep it a secret. Share it with a friend on social media, tag me at Your Style Collective, and leave a review. Your support means the world. Join me again next week for another empowering episode of Style and Strategy, the leadership series. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, you're already taking that first step towards your transformation journey. See you next time.